I'm going to show you a demonstration I would do for a customer, and I'm going to kind of keep let's assume that I have a mix of some technical people and I have some upper level management people. I want to handle both of those sets in the demonstration I'm going to give here. So what I typically do, what I start out with, let me minimize this for a second, is I go to our website here, inductiveautomation.com, and I go to the downloads area. And so I show the customer that they can go here and they can download the software today and the different operating systems that are here, Windows, Linux, and Mac OS X. In that what they're downloading and installing is a 2-hour runtime trial. So they can evaluate Ignition for 2 hours at a time. At the end of the 2 hours, it stops logging, it stops the clients, but you can press reset, go for another 2 hours, and you don't lose any data, you don't lose any configuration. So they can fully evaluate Ignition at their own leisure and before they were to buy the product. And that it's really quick and easy to install Ignition. You want to encourage them to go and install it on their laptop or on their desktop. And so I will typically have the 64-bit Windows installer already downloaded on my machine. You could show the download if you want to right in front of them, but I have that on my desktop here. And so I actually go through a live demonstration of the product, of Ignition. And so we can do some basic configuration of that as well. It's important to show how easy it is to install the product. So I go through the installation here. And the installation doesn't take very long. It takes less than 3 minutes. And as it's going through, it's important to note some of the key features of the product. So you can go to this installation mode and talk about how you can install different modules for Ignition, including the MES suite. But I typically do a typical install, which includes that works layer, that works package there. And so as it's installing here, I like to mention that we're only installing Ignition on a single machine that you designate as a server. It can be a desktop, it can be a laptop, it can be a VMware image, it can be a high-performance server. It doesn't matter. And it could be Linux, Windows, or Mac OS X, so we are cross-platform there. And that you're installing software in one place, and that's going to be the server. So it is installing a web server that anywhere in our network we can get access to by opening up our browser and typing in a simple URL to get to this page. So it's important for IT people, especially if they're in the room, to understand that it's only one server to install software, one place to design the projects, one place to back up, one place to license. It keeps that very, very simple. And so here is the Ignition Gate web page. You can see that Ignition is now installed and running. We got to this web page by typing in this URL up here, which happens to be the computer name of the server or the IP address followed by the port that Ignition is running on. And you can change that port to whatever you'd like. And I typically at this point will go to iademo.inductiveautomation.com. So that is our online demo that we have, that we're hosting here, that you can show a gateway that has some projects that we can launch as runtimes. And I will come back to this here at the end of the demonstration to show a completed application. So this is one that already has some stuff going. If we go back to ours, of course, this is a blank slate. There's no projects yet. We haven't configured anything yet. So there's this quick start guide here of how we can get going with Ignition quickly. From logging into the configuration section, connecting to a device, a database, launching the designer, configuring a couple of screens, and launching a runtime 1, 2, or however many we want. So I go to the configuration section. I follow this guide here. Log in with the admin password. You can see it's running in the 2-hour trial period. And I then will first connect to a PLC. So I get on here to the OPC connection servers and show that we are connected to OPC servers. Here I'm connected to the local one that Ignition comes standard with. You can also connect to third-party OPC servers like Kepware or Matricon. With our OPC UA server, we have drivers built in to many of the popular PLCs. If I create a device here, I can select Allen Bradley Ethernet Suite, Modbus TCP, as well as Siemens S7 1200, 300, and 400. There's also a TCP driver for barcode scanners and scales. And so we want to connect to an actual device. If I were to go on site with the customer and do a demonstration, I will typically bring a Micrologix with me so they can see that. Or sometimes, depending if the customer wants to allow it, we can connect to their live controllers. It's up to how you want that to work. But if I have Micrologix here, I'm going to go and select that and go next. I'm going to call it MLX and put in the IP address of that device. So we'll get connected to an actual PLC. So we can show that it's very easy to get connected. And all you got to do is put a name in there, really. I'm also connected to a simulator here. So I have a couple devices. The simulator is always going to be you have that there just in case and something goes wrong. You have some tags you can work with. You know you can go forward. So I'm going to create a simulator here as well. So I have 2 devices connected, and of course we can add multiple here. There's no limitation to number of devices, tags, or clients you can use with Ignition. With these, I can do real-time status control, And real-time alarming, if I want to do historical trending or logging anything historically, I would need to connect to a SQL database. So we go over here, databases connections, and we connect to a database. We can connect to any standard database, whether it be Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, DB2, etc. I happen to have a MySQL database on my machine here, so I'm going to go ahead and connect to that. And it's on my local machine, database called test, username, password. We kind of just get a connection going very easily so that we can log historical data. So those two pieces are critical. Get something going here, the base structure of Ignition. So once we have this, we can do a lot of configuration and show them different features of the product.